Chapter 13, Missing at Sea. Joe Deasy landed Daisy May on Palmyra late that afternoon, having seen no trace of Korpenig's plane. That night he received stunning news. Green Hornet had never landed. Holy smoke, he said. Two planes were now down, taking 21 men with them. A rescue effort was organized. Because Daisy May and Green Hornet had flown together at first, the organizer Green Hornet had gone down after Daisy May left it, but before it reached Palmyra. That was a stretch of 800 miles. In the whirl of currents in that area, survivors could be drifting in any direction. The search area would have to be enormous. At dawn, the search planes took off. Louis woke with the sun. Mac lay beside him. Phil lay in his raft, his mind still fumbling. Only the shark stirred. Louis decided to divvy up breakfast. He reached in his raft pocket. The chocolate was gone. He looked at Mac. Mac looked back at him with wide, guilty eyes. The realization that Mac had eaten only their food rolled hard over Louis. He knew they could die without it. But he quelled the thought. They'd be rescued today, perhaps tomorrow, he told himself, and the chocolate wouldn't matter. Curbing his hunger, he told Mac he was disappointed in him, but understanding that Mac had acted in panic, he reassured him that they would soon be rescued. Mac said nothing. The night chill gave way to a sweltering day. The men were hungry, but they could do nothing about it. The fishing gear was useless. There was no bait. As they lay in silence, a purring sound drifted between their thoughts. Searching the sky, they saw a bomber well to the east, flying much too high to be a search plane. It was probably headed to Palmyra. Louis lunged for the flare gun, loaded it, aimed high, and squeezed the trigger. The gun bucked in his hand. The flare streaked up. As it shot overhead, Louis shook a sea dye pack into the water, and a pool of vivid yellow bloomed over the ocean. Louis, Phil, and Mac watched the bomber, hoping and hoping. Slowly, the flare sputtered out. The bomber kept going, then was gone. The sighting gave the castaways a distressing piece of information. They hadn't known in which direction they were drifting. Since the Hawaii Palmyra flight lane ran near Green Hornet's crash site, the appearance of a bomber far to the east meant the rafts were drifting west, away from the view of friendly planes. Their chances of rescue were already dimming. That evening, the search planes returned to their bases. No one had seen anything. They'd back up at first light. Phil slept for most of the following day. Louis thought about food. Mac hunkered down. For another day, rescue didn't come. On the third morning, they again heard engines. Then there was this, a B-24, low and right overhead, plowing through the clouds, a search plane. Louis fired the flare gun. The flare shot at the bomber, and for a moment the men thought it would hit the plane. It missed, passing alongside and making a fountain of red. Louis reloaded and fired three more flares. The plane was Daisy May. Its crewmen were straining their eyes at the ocean, passing binoculars between them. But with clouds closing and parting, searching was extremely difficult. The flares died, and Daisy May flew on. No one aboard saw anything. The castaways' best chance of rescue was lost. Every hour they were farther west, and if they weren't found, their only hope would be to find land. Ahead, there wasn't a single island for some 2,000 miles. If by some miracle they made it that far alive, they might reach the Marshall or Gilbert Islands. Then they'd have another problem. Both sets of islands belonged to the Japanese. Watching Daisy May fly away, Louis had a dark feeling. The castaways' bodies were declining. They drank the last of their water and were intensely thirsty and hungry. They spent another frigid night, then a long fourth day. They knew if the search hadn't been called off, it soon would be. On the fifth day, Max snapped. After having said almost nothing for days, he suddenly began screaming that they were doomed. Wild-eyed and raving, he couldn't stop shouting. Louis slapped him. Mac went silent. As the lost men drifted into oblivion, their last letters reached their loved ones who had not been informed of what had happened. To avoid needlessly alarming family members, military policy was to search for a week before officially declaring men missing. In his last note to Cece, Phil wrote of the moon over Hawaii and how it reminded him of the last time he saw her. For the day when we can be doing things together again, as we used to, he wrote. I love you, I love you, I love you. On the weekend after the crash, the Zamperninis had a merry visit with Copernell's parents, who lived in Long Beach. Now a Navy officer stationed in San Diego, wrote Louis about it, asking him to tell Copernell his parents they were doing great. He tucked a photo of himself in the envelope. On the back, he wrote, "Don't let him clip your wings." As his brother's letter made its way toward Hawaii, Louis was on a raft far out in the Pacific. For the first time since he was a little boy, he prayed, speaking the words only in his mind. A week after Green Hornet vanished, the search was abandoned. Phil's crew was officially declared missing, and the process of informing family members began. On Oahu, an officer walked into the quarters that Louis, Phil, Mitchell, and Copernell had shared. He was there to catalog the men's belongings and send them home. Louis's room had mostly as it had been when he left that Thursday morning: a footlocker, a diary that ended with words about a rescue mission, a pinup of actress Esther Williams on the wall. The note Louis had left on the locker was gone, as was the liquor. In Princeton, Indiana, on Friday, June 4th, 1943, Kelsey Phillips, Phil's mother, received a telegram. "I regret to inform you that the Commanding General Pacific Area reports your son, First Lieutenant Russell A. Phillips, missing since May 27. If further details or other information of his status are received, you will be promptly notified." At Camp Pickett in Virginia, the same news reached Phil's father, who was serving as an army chaplain. He took leave and rushed for home. The telegram reached the Zampernidis that same evening. Louis's mother, Louise, called Sylvia, who was living in a nearby suburb with her new husband. Sylvia became so hysterical that a neighbor ran to her, but Sylvia was crying too hard to speak. Sobbing, she got into her car and drove to Torrance. Pulling up at her parents' house, she put on a brave face. Her father was quiet. Her mother was consumed with anguish. Sylvia, who, like everyone else, assumed Louis had crashed in the ocean, told her mother not to worry. "With all those islands," Sylvia said, "he's teaching someone to hula. Pete arrived. If he was a toothbrush or a pocket knife and he hits land," he said, "he'll make it. If he has a toothbrush and a pocket knife and he hits land, he'll make it. He'll make it happen." Louis found the snapshot taking the day Louis left, when he'd stood beside her on her front steps, his arm around her waist. On the back, she wrote, "Louis reported missing May 27th, 1943. Stanley Pillsbury and Clarence Douglas were in the hospital trying to recover from the wounds incurred over Nauru. Douglas's shoulder was ravaged, and he seemed emotionally gutted. Pillsbury still couldn't walk. In his dreams, planes dove at him endlessly. Pillsbury was in his bed when Douglas came in. The crew went down," he said. Pillsbury could barely speak. His first emotion was overwhelming guilt. "If only I had been there," he said later, "I could have saved it." On Oahu, Louis's friends hung a small flag in his memory. It would hang there as Louis Mack drifted west and the Allies carried the war across the Pacific and into the throat of Japan. In Torrance, Louise Zamperini's hands broke out in weeping sores, a consequence of her emotional trauma. Somewhere in those jagged first days, a fierce conviction came over her. Her son, she was absolutely certain, he was alive. That's the end of chapter 13. We'll get to chapter 14 in the future.